Welcome to the Draft Board Hockey Show, and my name is Mark, and my co-host Linc from New Wave Hockey, and of course, we got the prospect Don is in the house. He's fresh back from the NHL Draft, so we're gonna pick his brain. We're gonna go through some of the team drafts and see how we rate them and whatnot. So, Anthony, talk to us. The draft. What a night. Decentralized didn't really work out too well, though, right?
Yeah, how is the 5-hour first round? I know your live stream was probably popping off.
Oh, I had like friends and family over, so they were in the background. I thought it was gonna be like 3 hours. You know, where people were like, my brother was in town, he was coming in and out. I was like, he was actually feeding me drinks by the end of the night. I was like, I need a drink. So it was fun.
Yeah, it was long, but we made it through. I'm sure you were having a better time because you were actually there and with who you were sitting with. But yeah, it was a good time.
You know, I got to sit with Muskegon Lumberjacks broadcaster and Marco D'Amico, and it was really cool because when we drafted Václav Nestrasil, not we, the Blackhawks, everybody hates we, so
this guy says
I'm so
he's on
sorry.
the team, on a line with Connor Bedard. He is.
I didn't mean it. I meant Blackhawks,
good.
but I'm gonna get roasted for that one. But Václav Nestrasil obviously got drafted 25th overall. Definitely somebody that the Blackhawks community wanted. And Ezra, the broadcaster from Muskegon, he was screaming. Obviously, I didn't scream, but I was like pumping up, like hit the rail, and everybody, or there was a couple people that were like after, like, you can't scream for prospects, and I'm like, I'm sorry. And then Cam Robinson was like, who cares? Like when we got Quinn Hughes or his Canucks, he was very excited. So
he's a Canucks guy,
I believe so. Like that's what he was talking about. I might have just broke news, but I don't know.
It's fine. We'll keep it in house, but I'll just know which team to chirp him with when I eventually do meet him. So
yeah,
it'll be fun.
I mean, they might lose Quinn Hughes, so maybe you chirp him then. But yeah, it was just a great overall experience. The food was great the first day. Everybody said the food was terrible the second day because it was popcorn and Lay's. I had like 40 body armors because it was free, so I was just taking advantage. I don't think I was supposed to have that many. Me and the one guy, his name is Russ Cohen from SiriusXM for prospects. We saw two people sneak into the media section, so we ran over there and they were Flyers fans, so that's why I'm going to bring this up. But we interviewed them, and they had no idea who the defenseman was, Carter Amico or Shane Van Sage. They knew who Porter Bartone was. They didn't know who Jack Nesbitt was, so that was a pretty cool moment. Yeah, then they just walked out and left. So yeah, it was tough.
You should have gotten me and Mark in there. Like, I don't know, like fly us out somehow. You know,
whatever. We're gonna go next year. We'll go next year. You know, we're gonna do a live stream next year. Linc in the draft, wherever it's
on the stage.
We're doing something. We're doing live streaming somewhere. But you know what though? It's funny because like I'm a big fan of Van Sage. I've watched him for 2 years. Linc is a big fan of Carter Amico, and they both.
I'm a big fan of Van Sage too.
The other one that I was really happy about getting was Jack Murtagh. What a pickup! Oh my god.
Oh yeah, I want to get into the Flyers draft a little bit later because there was a bunch of guys that I actually thought were really, really solid picks. But going back to like actually draft night, not only did I want to apologize to the prospect Don right now because I made my own little personal mock draft and I was looking at who the Blackhawks could draft, and obviously Frundell seemed like the likely guy at 3, and not 2 because whatever. I'm not gonna get into it. But we at 25 and 29, I was like, I don't know who they're gonna get. And I'm just thinking of what like the prospect Don would say, and I predicted some guys that were way off, and they ended up getting Nestrasil and Mason West, which are the 2 guys that are on the prospect Don's like lips all the time. He's always talking about those 2. I just didn't listen, so I want to apologize. We're saying this on draft night that we were like,
you know the funny thing is my final mock, I have Nestrasil at 25 because of the prospect Don. I said, you know what, and I even said I don't. Personally, I don't know if Nestrasil is going to go here, but because the prospect Don says Chicago wants Nestrasil at 25, I put him on my mock, and it went that way. It's unreal.
Who would have thought?
I mean, guys,
they love them. Muskegon Lumberjacks. They've drafted 2 back-to-back in the first. Yep. And it was kind of interesting because I feel that if I, like me and some of the other Blackhawks community, if we didn't go on to this like Václav Nestrasil bandwagon, the fan base might have rioted. I don't know what happened with us, but it was like we knew he was like there was a huge chance he was going to be a Blackhawk. Like there was something about this guy where he's a Grand Slam hit, basically 6'6" center. Like with all of our small guys, it just kind of made sense, but we didn't know why. And also, he could have went 40, and I would not have been like that surprised just because Van Sagi went 48, and I thought like teams would want him more because he's more projectable. It's just kind of the way it went. So I'm thank you guys for saying that. It was awesome during draft night when we got him, as well as Mason West. We added 13.2 feet with those 2 picks. I have no idea.
That's unreal.
One of the things that I learned from Cam Robinson, as well as I told Johnny Lazarus, then he asked Mason West at the podium. I said, Mason West didn't actually know it was his draft year this year because he was a junior in high school. So he didn't know that. He's still going to play football, obviously, his senior year, but this guy's so talented and has such high hockey IQ, and he is not even like fully into playing hockey, which is just insane. So high upside Grand Slams.
Those are really good analyses there. I love the stories that came out of the draft too. Obviously, number one, I guess we were talking about it. We were tearing up when Matthew Schaefer got picked. That's the first pick. That was really. I hate saying tough to watch, but it was a little bit of a tearjerker. But my favorite stories came at the butt end of the draft. One was, I think it was a Leafs prospect, Rylan Fellinger, who was selected, and he was just a tall defenseman from Flint. Didn't think he was getting drafted, and Brad Treliving called him on his draft night. And it was called him on his prom night. Oh, I'm sorry, what am I saying draft night for? But he didn't know he was getting drafted, so he was at prom, and Trelling was like, "What's that music in the back?" It's like, "Oh, I'm at my prom." So it was a whole ordeal. And then Aiden Park, who I've been like a sneaky fan of because he's been like a Shattuck guy. Then he was a USHL guy this year. Goes 233, the second to last pick, and he lives just down the road in Hermosa Beach. Like that's awesome. So. Good for him. So I love all the stories that came out.
He was wearing like a hoodie or whatever. And shorts.
Yeah, he was just watching to see who else got drafted from his buddies, and he got drafted himself. So gotta love it.
The only reason he was there is because Riker Lee went on a private jet, they said, and totally was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the draft. Was not with his family, was with a couple friends. The media did get to talk to him, and it was awesome. It seemed like 60 media members were there trying to interview him after, I'm pretty sure, like, there was, like, Shane Van Sage probably had 8 or 10. And it was just because, like, during that portion of the draft, we hadn't had anyone for media in, like, 2 hours. Like, agents or teams or whatever, they were like, you don't have to go up to media. At that point, they weren't going up to media. So Aiden Park, when he did, we were like, oh, my God, this is amazing. And it was just kind of interesting because we got a lot of guys that were drafted in the 5th and 6th rounds. But it was like scattered. Like Simon Wayne came up multiple times. Roger McQueen had come up multiple times that day before, like with Eric Nilsson and watching. So it was like interesting. It was not the day 2 picks that were really coming up a lot. But you get to interview almost every single player that's there, like the top 100, but you don't know when they're getting drafted. So it was always interesting. There was agents everywhere. But everybody kept saying that there's going to be like representatives usually or GMs or owners or whatever it is at the draft if it's centralized. So it was definitely a good one to get your feet wet. And there was also about only 15% of media was there. So I felt like you could talk to prospects. But Aiden Parks, that was awesome to hear. Like that was one of the coolest stories, as well as the LA kid that announced the pick because he was that was awesome. First pick ever announced in Crocs. So
that's crazy.
Lovely.
That's crazy. So today we're just going to do a little recap. We're going to pick some of the top teams and how they did in the draft. And obviously we'll talk about our own teams, the Flyers and the Blackhawks for sure. So this is a draft recap show. Now, Linc, you said that we got a couple of the first one here we're going to talk about the Islanders. They made a splash come draft day. Check out this list, especially like the top few. Come on. We got Schaefer, Eklund, Aitchison, Prokhorov, Romano, Polikin. Now, so he just got drafted first overall in the
import draft. Yeah.
import draft. Rilla, Hood, and Kavasknica. Yeah. So you know what? What do you guys think of the good old Isles there with that little draft right there? I mean, hey, them making a move with the obviously no Dobson trade and getting 16th and 17th overall and landing Eklund and H is like, come on, what a draft! Like that first round was
It's a
just
great draft.
lights out.
It's a fantastic draft. First of all, last year we saw San Jose arguably win the draft because they got Celebrini, but they also traded up for Sam Dickinson the day prior. This year, it's a completely different thing where you get 2 picks around that range. And they ended up landing a guy who I thought was top 6 worthy in Victor Eklund. Fell outside of the top 10. I was like, okay, sure. I thought he was going to go somewhere soon. I thought he was a Detroit guy. Falls away all the way to 16. I don't know how that happens. I don't know why it happens. I don't know who let it happen. But I know the men are responsible. And you know what? I think this pick's going to haunt you for a long time. Secondarily, Kayshawn Aitchison, my boy, I need to get a new puck. Whenever I go to UBS, I got to get his puck. Because I'm like, hey, like, look what I have. Tremendous talent as well. I was a little bit surprised that they didn't go with Logan Hensler because I really thought that he was going to be an Islander. I also kind of wanted him to be because I predicted him to be an Islander the day prior. But Kayshawn Aitchison, what a snag right there at 17. I love his physicality. Who doesn't? And he got the goal scoring pedigree there. And we could talk all about the other later picks, but I wanted to highlight just one more. Their third lefty in this draft, Sam Larilla, was in the running for. I think he was a finalist for USHL Defenseman of the Year. He did not end up winning it, but he was an overager. But he's a late August birthday. He's like August 30th or something like that. And he was in the USN TDP last year, and he should have been drafted last year. He was fantastic last year. He goes to Fargo and is even better. So I think getting those 3 defensemen, they've really rebuilt their back end, and their left side is looking fantastic with all the guys they got last year and who they had, of the guys they got this year and one of the guys they got last year. So
I just wanted to make a point. So you just talked about who they drafted. So think about that. They went lefty, lefty, lefty. You know, we always like, it's funny because like when you're doing mocks and stuff like that, you're always like, okay, they're going to take Hensler because they need a right D, right? Because they just got rid of Noah Dobson and they're kind of weak on the right. I think that the NHL for the most part, best player available. And you know what I mean? And then you go from there. If you need a right shot D, you go and find it in free agency or whatever the case may be, trades. But it just goes to show. And another example is San Jose. So their late first round pick, who'd they take? They took Ravensburger. They got Askarov. They just picked up Askarov. So why are they taking Ravensburger? Again, there's a method to their madness. And I think as, public scouts, I guess you could say, or amateur scouts, whatever you want to call us, we just don't know the mentality of the NHL game yet. Because there's so many times when we're like, oh, they're going to take this guy because they need a right shot D, or they're going to take this guy because it is always different, man. I'm telling you, the NHL, it's a head scratcher when it comes to drafting. And case in point, like I said, the Islanders taking 3 lefty back to back, basically first round, second round. And was it Larilla was 4th round?
Yeah, he was the
5th, 138.
Yeah.
5th. Yeah. Okay. So you know what I mean? So it just goes to show, right? I think that moving forward, I'm going to start going maybe best player available. Cause obviously a lot of think about that. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I agree with you. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
No. So the thing about the NHL draft is you're drafting these guys 17, 18 years old. It's not the NFL draft. I have always said you are drafting assets. You take best player available every single time you can, and you never try to fill a need. Unless you're drafting 1 or 2 and it's between Matthew Schaefer or Michael Misa. Obviously, if it's a right-handed defenseman or whatever it is, or that might go into your list a little more like it did with Artem Levshidov and Demidov. I would have taken Demidov because it was best player available, but it's always best player available. Same thing with the Habs when they took Reinbacher over Mitchkov. Maybe Mitchkov didn't want to go there, but you take best player available every chance you have, and then you work down. It doesn't matter what position somebody is because you might have a different hole to fix later on. You're drafting players like, let me do an example. Number 20th pick, Artemonov. You basically drafted a player that is signed now for till 2030 in his MHL team or KHL in Russia, and you're drafting him for the next regime unless you buy him out. So I get why teams like San Jose are just taking Ravensburg, they took Simon Wang because it was best player available with the upside. I mean, it's basically just upside case because it's lotto tickets regardless, 50-50 if they make it for 200, like, and then 200 games is a little lower percentage. But I like what the Blackhawks did. Like Daniil Prokhorov at 42, that was just
It's
an
a great get.
amazing pick. Yeah. And you
Yeah.
get him at 42. That's no risk. That's basically, they basically had 4 first round picks because of the Prokhorov pick. I think he should have definitely been like 31, 32 based on how we saw the rest of the board fell. Maybe a team should have went up and tried to get Lyndon Lekovich. I think that was the only player, or Malcolm Spence. Maybe that was the only 2 players that I was like interesting because they could have selected Malcolm Spence at 42 instead of, because he went 43, and give Matthew Schaefer a really good buddy. I thought the Blackhawks should have done that with Andrew Crystal because you're drafting for talent, you're getting an amazing asset, and he's somebody that could be ascending while also giving your player a really good friend for your roster. Now we're trying to find a friend for Bedard, even though we could have had him already. So I believe that like they hit it out of the ballpark with the Islanders selections. You get one easy franchise player in Schaefer, and then you get another franchise player in Eklund, in my honest opinion, based on who they're going to have in their top 6 for the next 10 years, because this guy is going to be a top 6 player. The fact that he fell to 16 didn't make any sense. If you were going to make that Dobson trade, you're going to definitely pick best player available on both of those picks, and that's exactly what they did. Keyshawn Aitchison should have went in the range of anywhere from like 12 to probably 17. So the fact that they got him, even though he is a poor skater and might be worse than Porter Martone, shout out to Stephen Ellis for saying that, but it does go to show you that you're going to take best player available regardless if you're Matthew Darsh or in whatever the team is who's selecting for the Islanders. They did incredible. That is how you rebuild a team. They went from nothing to Yzerman, Colin Ritchie, a 2026 first, and this draft class by giving up, what was it, Dobson and Brock Nelson. Like, fantastic haul. You needed this exact haul if you're going to retool quickly. This is exactly what teams like, the Ducks, the Penguins, the Predators should be doing. Obviously, the Ducks already rebuilt a lot, so you don't have to, but this is what those teams should be looking at.
And I do want to quickly counter with the Spence and the Lakovic falls, because those were pretty significant. And then we'll go into the Blackhawks, see how their draft was. Go one. Actually, I guess San Jose is now. We'll see. Well, whatever. But we talked about this on draft night about Lakovic, because he's not falling for no reason. There are reasons why Lyndon Lakovic was falling. Obviously, amateur scouts, we're kind of drawn to things like the transition game, the incredible skating, the tools that you're looking at. But if there are a ton of organizations that believe that you can't put it all together, and there were a ton that passed on Lakovic. I'm not saying that Lakovic is a guy who's going to bust out in the NHL. Not at all. I think he's somebody who absolutely has as good a chance as anybody, but he's a little bit further away, and some teams aren't willing to take that risk. There were certainly holes in Lakovic's game. I didn't take him as high as, like, say, you did. Same thing with Spence. Sure, there was the infection with his tongue and all that, but there were some holes in his game. There were some real effort concerns. So you kind of have to waive that balance. And there are sometimes, like you said, they're assets, and you have to put investment into them. You have to put time into them. And some people felt that those players weren't worth it. And unfortunately, and I didn't agree with this at all, Malcolm Spence fell to 43, which I was like, whoa, what's going on there? So.
Yeah, I think you know what the other thing is, like you said, taking some swings on some players too. One
Like
player
Nesbitt.
in particular, Nesbitt at 12, Zarovsky 34 to the Habs. That was I mean, there's talk of him going in the first round. Now this is a Russia you always got to worry about, right? Especially a player who dominates the NHL, because the NHL is not that strong of a junior league, we'll say. And not being able to, well, for us to just watch it on video, you don't really know what other components are involved, right? It's nice to see a player in person as opposed to just on video. But I think Zarovsky is like one of those boomer bust kind of players. And you know what the other thing is, though? You got Demidov there. So if he comes over in a couple of years or whatever the case may be, he's got a fellow Russian there. It makes it more comfortable for him. And I mean, in terms of skill set, the kid's got some skill. There are, away from the puck kind of concerns, and the skating. However, but I thought that was a pretty neat one too. I thought that Zurovsky 34. Actually, I took him in my dynasty. I took him in my dynasty league.
There you go.
I did. I said, you know what?
Look,
the Habs took him.
I feel like Rocco was in your ear too, because Rocco was like putting money on him being a first rounder, and he just missed out on him. I will say about the compete issues and stuff like that with Zurovsky, I've found that was really only in the MHL. People really need to go back and watch his KHL run with Ufa. He was great there, but he fell, and it's another Russian to the Canadians. So look, they're building something over there. So, but them and the Canes really are Russian hungry. So let's move over to the Blackhawks.
Canes have 18 Russians in the last 4 years. They've drafted 18 Russians in the last 4 years.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Oh, so we're going Blackhawks now?
Yeah, I pulled up the Blackhawks.
For the Dawn, we got the look at this. Look at this. Frondell, Nestrasil, Mason West. Nathan Bain made it to that low, Like, remember, he started off the season on fire. Oh, there's Linc's boy, Julius Sumpf.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you talked about him a lot.
I do.
Productive. Very productive.
Yeah, Comey and Konarski. Yeah, you know what? That's a pretty decent draft overall. I have to admit, they went size. They wanted size. I
wanted to steer this conversation in this direction because I know the Don was there, and I know he had a very strong positive opinion of Anton Frondell staying for every single subsequent pick to congratulate his fellow teammates from Sweden, the teammates that he got and gained in Nestrasil and West, and he waited for all his Djurgården's teammates as well. So what was that like? Again, you met him as well. Just seeing that is just speaks volumes of a character, right?
Yeah, it was really cool, actually. Like, even Milton Gashford went up to him. Jacob Wozniak is really good friends with him. You know, there's just so many players that Anton Frondell grew up with. Like, during the media scrum, because I definitely went out there, I got like 10 good minutes with him. He was like, is Victor Eklund's not drafted yet? Like, what is going on? And it was like pick 7. Like, he thought he was going a lot higher. I think that Anton Frondell is going to be a fan favorite, a team's teammate. Like, he is awesome. I was actually I was with a bunch of scouts. It was like Steven Ellis, the Sirius XM guys, Ezra, and a couple other people, and Shang. And we were all there just sitting in the lobby in the Marriott. And you see Wozniak and Anton Frondell, his agent, and like the family of Wozniak, like Victor and a bunch of his brothers, because they're supporters on TikTok. So I do know them, but they, like, Anton was like hitting the kids in the head, like, and then taking their phones or making them jump. Like, he had just gotten drafted, and like, he wasn't wearing the merch anymore, but it was just like he was having fun. He was just playing around. He's like a superstar, but he's also a kid. So it's so crazy to think about. I think this is a much better pick for the Blackhawks than, say, Artem Levshinov. And this is no slight on Artem, but it's just because, like, Artem Levshinov was a right-handed defenseman and filled a need. I think Anton Frondell was best player available on the Blackhawks board. Artem Levshinov could have also been, but this fills a need. He was asked what position he wants to play. He's like, whatever Bedard's not. Like, I love that. Like, that was awesome. I asked him, did he get to watch the cup runs? He was like, he got to room with Marcus Kruger during a game, and he was like, I did not let Marcus go to sleep. I was asking him all the things. He's like, Chicago's the best, all this stuff. Like, this guy was born to play in Chicago. And the interesting thing is, Anton Frondell and Václav Nestrasil have been playing together since they were like 9. Václav's dad sent a video to me and was like, look, he made Anton fall on his butt, and he crossed Anton up and then went between the legs and scored when he was 9 years old. Like, Václav and Anton are like, not, I don't know if they're friends or not, but they've obviously played each other for a very long time. So they're definitely going to be friends in the next 3 to 5 years, obviously, whenever Václav comes, because I think it's going to be 2 years and then whatever at UMass. But Anton Frondell is a incredible person, and I think we found Bedard's line mate. And he's also a power forward, more power forward than anyone in the top 6 or 7 or 8. So I feel like it was just a no-brainer selection once Misa didn't fall. And that smoke was wild. The couple of days leading up, I was on my feet. I had no idea what was going on.
That's a great segue because I just pulled up the Sharks draft,
Yep.
and I was a proponent of Misa being the best player in this draft. No shade on Schaefer, no shade on my boy Higgins either, but Misa had a fantastic year, and he goes second overall. I felt vindicated, honestly. I felt great, but then they took swings on guys I guess, like we talked about, best player available, Joshua Ravensburg, he was going to go in the first round. Someone was going to trade back in and get him, and they got their guy there, Simon Wang at 33. That's a good bet. He's got some great skating, great size, but my favorite pick from them day 2 was easily Cole McKinney at 53. I know Mark's a big fan of him. I'm a big fan of him.
I'm so excited for him.
Michigan, he's going to be competing for like a top line spot at Michigan, whether or not Hage stays or not. Like I think Hage might get signed. We'll see what happens, but I really love Cole McKinney. He's a very special player, and even back to his Chicago Mission days, he was lighting it up. So I was really glad that San Jose kept hitting in the first few picks. They were doing some good things.
The Sharks are going to be a team to be contending with in the future. That this is a team. They're building something really nice in San Jose, man. Like, think of the last 3 drafts that they've had. It's been unreal. Like, that draft right there. You want to talk about, like you said, you got Michael Misa, superstar. You got Ravensburgen, who's arguably one of the best goalies in this year's draft. And then you land Simon Wang, who is absolute raw talent that if they can turn him into something special, like, and then Cole McKinney, like, I love Cole McKinney too. That's a pretty sweet top 4 in your draft. Like, and San Jose is doing it right. I'm telling you that this is going to be a team. This is going to be a team to watch in the near future. Watch out.
Yeah, San Jose obviously hit a lot of what their organization needed. Misa is just a plus. It's a surplus of top 6. Actually, I guess they didn't need him basically, but who wouldn't want Michael Misa? Like, getting Simon Wang, I think, was fantastic. Like, not value, I would say. I think they left some value on the board, but exactly what they want. Home run swing, big defenseman that it can skate really well. This is definitely a good lotto ticket for them to have. I love Cole McKinney. Joshua Ravensburgen was definitely a value pick because he fell that far. I thought he was going to be picked a lot higher than that. I thought he was going to go kind of where Artemonov went. Andrianov, yeah. And Cole McKinney, I just love. Shout out Michigan's head coach, Brandon, who actually came up. Like, we met at the draft and he said, "Oh, you're the prospect on." I was like, "No way, you know me." And then I looked if he followed me, and he did, and I didn't follow him back. So I had to follow him back. And I tried to look when he followed me. That was the coolest thing. I know. He literally knew who I was. And I was like, no way. So I have to go to a Michigan game this year. It's so cool.
Come on down. I got the spots. Awesome. I got the spots for us. It's unreal. It's an unreal rink.
I feel like Mark works for the San Jose, organization, because they took he took Misa, he's watched probably the most, Chernyshov, and then they took Michigan man. Like, it's just interesting. Obviously, Cole McKinney doesn't play for Michigan yet, but they took
NTDP.
NTDP.
All right, exactly. So, but no, now moving on to, because we've talked about a lot of the picks. Now we're moving on to me and Mark's team. And look, draft night was a little bit rough because I guess there were like people that we wanted on the board, but kind of looking at this wholesale, I can't not look at this and think this is a fantastic draft. I think this was one of the best drafts that a team had. And it really all started and kind of ended with the second round. The second round, I personally think you got guys who, you have 3, maybe even 4 guys just from the second round who are bubble, if not first round picks. Amico, I've said my grace about him. You have no idea how happy I am to have him as a Flyer. Jack Murtagh is one of the youngest players in this entire class. He's going to be 18 in his entire year for BU. Shane Van Saggy, again, he's a first rounder for me. He was just fantastic. Like, all you have to get is the offensive game out of him. And Matthew Guard, just a dog from Red Deer, just incredible in the paint, in the blue line, and in transition and in the faceoff circle. I was really a big fan of him. And kind of wholesale, was looking at like the Nesbitt pick. I'm like, it's not that bad because he can skate. He's a big guy. He's kind of what they're searching for. And looking back at even Porter Martone versus the James Higgins argument, it really was always going to be Porter Martone, just kind of with the pedigree with that he
he's
has.
A flyer. That's a flyer.
Yeah,
Porter
he's a
Martone's
flyer guy. I was watching like some of the things that were coming out of training camp, and I think it's I forget the guy's name. I think it's like Austin Montgomery. I don't know. Jeff Merrick retweeted an interview of the guy that he says is going to be a future general manager someday. So I was watching the whole thing when I was in the gym. And while I'm doing pumps, he's just saying, yeah, Porter Martone, yeah, is just a beast on the ice. We were showing him stuff in the weight room today, and he was impressing us. I was like, yeah, awesome. I was just like, that was my motivation at the bench press today. I was just like, that was so awesome to hear all that. But no, I think the Flyers really came out with this with exactly what they wanted. They are emulating the Florida Panthers kind of to a T. You look at the guys that they're drafting, they're going to be hard to play against. So they have their skill, guys, theoretically. Now they have the size and the physicality to just kind of supplement that. So I really thought they had a great draft.
So what was Prospect Don? What was the word on the street for the Flyers draft? As an insider, what'd you hear?
It was an A+. No one did better in day 2. The Nesbitt trade up was the one where everybody was talking about. But here's the inside info on this. 3 teams in the teens wanted Nesbitt. He was the guy that, I don't know if you watched the NFL draft or if anybody did. Colston Loveland was the guy that everybody wanted, but nobody was talking about. And the Bears drafted him 10 overall. And there was like 4 teams that were trying to trade up, like the LA Rams, who always hit. They're basically the Hurricanes of the draft. And every team wanted him. That was the same thing with Nesbitt. 6'4", really old style player, good center. Him and Jet Luchenko are going to be able to interchange second or third line based on who's better, who plays better, and who's better in the playoffs. I think Jack Nesbitt's going to be your playoff 2C, in my opinion. I really like this pick for them. And also, who would I have taken at 31? It would have been Van Sagi or Carter Amico. So, like, they basically got so many first-round picks.
Essentially, the 2 picks that they traded up to get Nesbitt, they got those 2 guys who I would have picked with those 2 picks.
And Murtagh for free.
And Murtagh for free. Well, not for free, but like still. And to think that we also traded away a pick to the Ducks. I said we. See, I'm doing what you're doing now. So the Flyers also traded a pick away to the Ducks to get Trevor Zegras. Yeah. I think they are really, really making a case for winners of the offseason. Slow down. That's a very, very hard title to give out, and a one that's been cursed many a times.
Predators.
But you know, I feel like they had a really great draft. And it kind of is capitalizing on a really good offseason that they're having. So, but yeah, I honestly, and as far as teams go, that's all the ones I want to get into. But I did want to get into a few guys who like fell on my list that it landed someplace else. I guess we talked about Zarovsky, but the Canadians also had a pretty good draft too.
Oh, you're talking about LJ Mooney?
LJ Mooney was one of them, but I liked 2 guys in particular, Hayden Papanekas and Bryce Pickford. But we can't not do this podcast and mention Milton Gastreen, second round to the Washington Capitals, to a division rival of my favorite team. But I can't think of a better organization for him to have gone to. That they have been making some great picks in the second round, and they have looked really, really good in year 2. Milton Gastreen is going to blow up for Moto Hockey next year, and he's going to be in the Allsvenskan. He's going to reach another offensive game. So
I love Milton Gastreen. Like, when I got to talk to him every single time, it seems like he would just stare at me the entire press conference. And I'm like, there was one time I just was like, you got to, like, I just kept asking him questions, and because he just kept eye contact with me, and I was like, I don't actually have any more questions. So that guy is awesome. Definitely, I think he's going to be an NHL player. I think that was a faller for sure. Also, a faller was Cam Schmidt going to 94th overall to the Stars. Like, how did we allow that to happen? They might have just got another Logan Stankoven, maybe. But for Montreal, Carlos Sandell, who I've compared to like a Nicholas Chalmerson with more upside. He had 30 points this year on a bad team. And, you know, I mean, they were the lowest scoring team in the league. So I thought that was really good for them to get him. Habs obviously got Dobson, so you got to add that into their pool as well. And if the Flyers, to go back to the Zegras thing, they have 5 NHL players that they drafted in the second round, basically. When have we ever seen that? Because Matthew Gard is 6'5", who's going to be able to play on your PP2 and just get in front of the net, in my honest opinion, and just be that guy that's screening. He has great hands, puck deflections. I think that I've talked to him multiple times this year. I really liked Matthew Gard. I was like, wow, the Flyers had the draft I wanted the Blackhawks to get, because I believe that they had a good draft, the Blackhawks, with like Mason West, Václav Nestrasil, obviously Anton, but then we got Nathan Bim, and it was kind of a drop off after that. I know a lot of people like Parker Holmes, but he had 1 goal in 21 games, and then he got hurt. Obviously, that's just an upside play. So,
but yeah, that was the trend late. You were seeing 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" defensemen and forwards just flying off the board at that point, which again, like, that's what everyone's looking for. So, so that's the whole thing. One last team I want to shout out before we go in another direction. And probably talk about the import draft. The Anaheim Ducks.
Put it up.
I think they had. Oh wait, hold on. I did not have that ready. I had it already on my board. So I'm looking at my own rankings actually. Despite what the score says, I think they had a really, really solid draft. You see that now? There you go.
Yep.
I really think they had a solid draft. Roger McQueen. What they did with Roger McQueen PR wise was brilliant, and he's wearing number 95. He is, and that's great. I hope he probably will go back to Brandon this year. I hope he changes his number to that when he's at Brandon. But Eric Nelson was a great grab in the second round. I still like Lasse Bolius, but later in the draft, they were just grabbing young guys. They were all August 2007 birthdays. And they all had upside, like Anthony Allen Samake, who's going to be going to UConn next year. I definitely butchered that name, so I'm sorry. They got McQueen's teammate in Turco with their last pick. They got a guy like Drew Schock from the USNTDP, who's a Michigan commit. He's a young guy too, and he's going to be playing at Michigan next year for the whole year. So you've got a couple of guys here that are just, we'll see what they can do and become. I really, really like their draft wholesale, but it starts with their first pick. And you guys know how much I love McQueen. I've pumped his tires a lot, but just seeing him in a Ducks jersey and seeing how happy he was at Disneyland, I was like,
that's unreal.
Perfect. I'm getting a McQueen jersey, by the way. Like, I don't know about you guys. I'm shelling out the money.
How many jerseys are you buying, Linc? Because like,
okay, well, only one because of Zegras right now. I was so like, look, we'll see what happens, but like, hopefully I become flush with cash soon and I can just get all the jerseys I want, frame them, put them everywhere.
Someone buy Linc a Roger McQueen jersey.
Yeah. Carter Amico too. We gotta get Carter Amico.
Yes.
Let's do Pittsburgh. Okay, so here.
All right, now moving on. I can't pull it up any further, otherwise I'm not going to be able to get all of them in.
So we're gonna go. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about the Pens. You want to talk about the Pens and some of their picks here?
I will say that they made some interesting picks. I do wholesale kind of like I say wholesale a lot, but I do like their draft, like kind of at face value.
Not bad, actually.
Ben Kendall was well, look, they had 13 picks. Like they made their they made their selections, they had their guys. And they even got they got 2 Sioux guys, so Dubas is getting his fill. But Kendall is a very solid pick at 11. It's a little higher than I would have liked, but if that's your guy, that's your guy. It's the same thing with Nesbitt. If you're okay, you have to kind of be okay with it at some point. Bill Zonin and Will Horkoff back-to-back very solid picks. I love those guys. They're both going to be very solid two-way centers in that organization. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are big Billy Z fans in the future. But yeah, like even going later to Peyton Kettles, like he's a September 07 birthday. He's very, very big and he plays big too. And he, oddly enough, is like, he's a net front presence on the power play. Like he is a very unique type of defenseman. He's got a little bit of offensive upside too. So he's a good bet to have there. Charlie Trethaway is a USNTDP guy, like very, very highly skilled. Yeah, very young.
Trethaway is a really young player too.
Another guy that I liked late was the Portland Winterhawks. They had a guy named Ryan Miller. No, not the goalie. He's a winger, and he's just a complete energy guy. And I look at this guy, I'm just like, this guy is like just reminds me of like some of those old Penguins teams, like when like Nick Bonino would just go fight in the boards, and it would make me angry. Because I'm like, why
Nick
don't we have a guy like
Bonino.
that?
Oh my God, that's
Oh my
awesome.
gosh! But I did like their draft wholesale. There were some guys and some questionable picks that I was like, like the goalie they took out of the Quebec League. I was like, oh, that's a bit of a reach. So look, whatever. I think it was fine. It was a good draft.
Yeah, getting Trethaway there at 73,
Yeah.
who's a Penguins fan, I thought was phenomenal. He didn't even think that
Yeah,
they were going to pick
he's from
him. They didn't
Western
meet with him.
Maryland too. So he's like in Penguins country.
Yeah, he's a Pittsburgh Steelers and Penguins fan. So his first jersey was like Letang and Sid.
Wow.
Very cool for him. Peyton Kettles was obviously on the Bunker Boys, and he broke his hand when he was 16. I thought that was really interesting. So, and I guess he's just turned 16, 17. So he's young. William Horkoff is a really good pick. Obviously, his dad played a long time. I know that he was a lot higher than consensus, especially for amateur scouts. Bill Zanin, I think, is a really good fit there. 22, I think, was his range. And then the thing was Kindle. Is that too high? He has some skating issues. We talked about him a lot over the course of the year. I think that there was no one more clutch in the entire playoffs than this guy. I think he had 5 or 6 overtime game winners or game winning goals.
Yeah,
Absolutely insane.
He was brilliant. He shored up a lot of like surprising issues for Calgary, because Calgary they just did not have a good year. Like even Carter Yakimchuk regressed, and this is a guy who scored 99 points. So this is a guy who's going to succeed no matter how the team plays. So I really liked him, and I've fought for him on this podcast. So you guys don't need to take it from me. So
yeah, and that's a really good point.
Exactly.
Lastly, Quinn Bouchane, he's the guy that does Moonwater. I promised that I wouldn't say anything until after the draft, but he takes a glass of water, puts it outside, lets the moon shine on it, and then he drinks it because he scored a goal the day after he did it the first time.
Unreal.
So I had 6 players tell me that was the weirdest pregame ritual this year, and he was the winner of pregame rituals.
That's awesome.
So congrats. And then another K-Doc is in the league. So maybe the Habs will try him out as 2C in a couple years.
See, is he Penn State guy? I think he's one of the Penn State guys that was drafted. We'll see. I don't know. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Whatever.
You know what? It was an interesting draft. I think that we kind of assumed that there was going to be a lot of not movement, but a lot of variation in where people were going to be drafted, because near the end of the draft, you could either go, late first, early second. Some people slipped a lot. Like you said, Cameron Schmidt slipped a lot compared to what we thought he would go.
Yeah.
But
Klingsell,
yeah.
That's all size.
Wozniak too. He went pretty low.
Is Wozniak went like 55?
Yeah, to Vegas too. I will say that I was like kind of surprised, even with like how, because size played a role. I knew that guys like Benak, Schmidt, and Mooney were going to fall. I will even say this, and like this might be a surprise to people, because again, he is performing well in Montreal's camp as of today, which is like the first day of camp. I'm actually surprised he got drafted, to be fair, because he's like 5'7", maybe he's like 5'6", 5'7". He's a younger guy. And we've all seen the videos. Like, we were all young kids on TikTok. Or I guess not Mark, but like we were all watching TikToks of this guy just performing like crazy for the little Penguins. But he's I was actually surprised that he got drafted. I'm glad he's at the right place. I think Montreal and Sparty St. Louis is like a really good landing spot for him. So, and he's gonna be at Minnesota next year. So I think of a guy like Alexander Zetterberg, even though Zetterberg didn't have a lot of success at BU. He's gonna get a chance to show people like, hey, I was worth the talent that I showed you all year. Just you got to ignore my size. I was like, okay. So I was impressed that he did enough. I was a little bit worried there for a bit, because he is a guy that I really liked. But yeah.
Any other takeaways from the draft, boys?
I guess the only one worth mentioning for me is though those guys went, a guy like Philip Ekberg, who dominated the U18s, 221. I thought he wasn't going to get drafted, on late in the 7th round. I was like, oh well, I guess he's not getting drafted, but he went to the Canes. So
And you know what's funny that Ekberg, talking about Ekberg, because he tore up the U18s, that in some mocks he kind of climbed up, which I was kind of like, oh my god, like let's. And this is the problem sometimes with mocks or public scouting, is that people take that one tournament and they think that, oh, because a player did really well, and they climb up too much, and I'm like, oh, I think, because I think some people had put him in like late first. I'm like, what's going on here?
No. Well,
you know what I mean? Like that's how it is.
I'm not like, come on, I'm not going to do that. But
No.
I had him hovering like in my like 60 or 70 spots, and I was like, maybe he falls like past the top 100, but I don't think he was gonna.
Because he actually, what? Even in the he started turning it around in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I really thought that he was somebody that like people would have taken like a chance a little bit earlier on, but I guess not. So look, it happens.
Here are 5 quick names that I wanted to say. William Moore going to 51, I thought was an absolute steal. And then the Hurricanes went back to back at 62 and 67. They got Ryabkin, which was wild to see him fall that far, but also surprising, or not surprising. And then Kurbin Limitov went 67, which I was kind of surprised about because I had him top 40. David Bedkowski at 71. So I thought that he is going to be a really good playoff player, a really good defenseman, very big. He's a tattoo, and his dad was very upset that he got it because he didn't know about it. And then Jack Ivankovic was like at 58. He gets drafted by the team that his favorite player ever is UC Saros. So yeah, that's his comp, and now he gets to play with him. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. You know what? Listen, it was a fun. Hey, Linc, even though we were sitting there for 5 hours and
there was no one else I'd be sitting on live. I'd rather be sitting on live with for 5 hours. That was so fun.
So yeah, so that's it for today's video. As always, thanks for watching. And the prospect Don Anthony, thanks for joining us, buddy, and give us some insight into the draft. Love hearing the stories. Always a pleasure. Well, we're going to have you on again, obviously, in the near future. We're going to talk 2026 class. That's our next page. We're turning the page. We're turning the page of 2025. 2026 is coming up, boys. So thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.